It is January 5th, 2021, lesson 66 in A Course in Miracles student workbook. My happiness and function are one. So as I was working out, I had this pretty big release, specifically on the fact that I learned that happiness is being loved. Now, when you break that up, happiness, we understand that happiness is who we are in essence, right? The more we feel happy, the more we feel ourselves, our spirits, our essence. Now, when I thought about being loved, most oftentimes we are very, unkind to ourselves. We've learned to be very unkind to ourselves and others, and that's why it reflects so much in the world. So when we are looking at the idea of being free, we have to let go of trying to survive as the body. The being that we are has created the mind, and the mind has created the body. So for us to become free, we have to let go of wanting to survive as a body. So when it gets down to the idea of our hierarchy of needs, we're looking at the physiological and safety needs. And that most oftentimes comes from survival. So we have developed a need for approval, being loved. Because if you approve of me, you accept me, then basically what happens is that I survive. And if you don't, then I'll try to control. So that's when we start becoming closer to our self-esteem in an ego sense, because now it's negative reinforcement. We're trying to control things outside of our environments. So our ability to feel love is equated to the amount of love that we actually give out. So blessed is the one that gives if he gives from his heart. Now, when we're looking at our thinking and our intelligence, we are learning that our mind has created our reality. So our thinking and intelligence determines matter, right? It's creating matter at every single moment. So when we are understanding that we have to take back our mind, we allow ourselves to understand what are the universal laws, and that will come handy as we start furthering our journey within this understanding of ourselves, because we must understand before we can love. And the more that we love, the more we can experience love, and the more we experience love, the more we can learn how to love more. When we are increasing our love, we want to increase it to the point that it's full, that we have no discrimination within our love. And we see that very often, especially within our world, because we have adopted these ideologies. Now, love is so powerful, and a great example of this was Mahatma Gandhi. And why is this? Because love can stand up to the world, okay? So when we're looking at love, we can practice it by seeing how much we love strangers and individuals that make us very concerned about how the world is, because the degree that we can love strangers is the same degree that we can love our family. Now, unconditional love is very similar to a mother who gives up and gives anything to her child. And this is very similar to how our mind works. It's split into ways, where we have the love of God, and then we have the ego, which creates the illusion. And the only thing that you're going to get from the ego is more illusion. So it's very similar to a mother that has Munchausen syndrome and makes her child sick, Munchausen by proxy. A great example was Eminem. So his mother would feed him pills and make him believe that he was sick, and that was the best way that she could love him, but only reinforcing that unloving part of herself and projecting that onto her child. when we look at love, we look at the mother and how loving it can be. Now, we also see how Martin Luther King, someone that learned from Mahatma Gandhi, would love and turn the cheek. And this is very similar to our brothers and sisters. When we have brothers and sisters in our family, or even our parents, where it's very difficult for us to love them because they're not doing anything, in essence, to become better, right? So Mahatma Gandhi loved the British Empire and gave them even more love because they were their brothers. And that's learning to accept. So the more we learn to accept individuals, the more we are loving, because we don't want to change them. When we try to change others, we're trying to reinforce our ego, just like I explained with the Munchausen syndrome. So the way that we accept others and ourselves is the same way that we accept the world, which means that we don't want the world to change. And that allows us to love the world as it is, because the world is perfect as it is in essence. So the way that we learn to love more is by understanding and wisdom. And of course, you can do this by daily practices, by teaching yourself to love. And the more you love, the more you learn love. And the more you learn love, the more you're able to love. So when we take a hold of being able to understand what our purpose is, I was taking into consideration how difficult it is being on this journey. The journey of the soul is the journey of self-realization. And it's very lonely, okay? Especially in this stage of my life, because people don't really understand what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. It's very difficult to be understood and accepted. So I have to do that for myself, because that is a want, okay? Because that roots back to the need of survival. And all we need is God, right? And God is ourselves, which means that all we need is ourself. And love is happiness, and happiness is being loved. So, of course, I had to release whatever that was, whatever that may be. It didn't really matter what it was, but I allowed myself to let go of that wanting so I can feel it more and allow myself to move forward in this journey, which is the last mile, because the last mile is the loneliest mile. And that's where you actually become at peace with who you are, because we're remembering ourselves that my happiness and my function are one. So the more that I see peace within the world, the more that I can accept myself as an individual that can bring peace and love individuals, okay? And it reminded me of this book that I was recommending. I haven't read it, so I can't really recommend it, but it was The Purpose-Driven Life. And the question starts with, what on earth am I here for? And you have to understand that it's not about you, okay? You are the vessel of God, and God is speaking through you and trying to experience itself through you. So the 4 purposes is that we're planned for God's pleasure, we're formed for God's family, created to become like Christ, serving for God, and then the mission. When we look at, again, the meaning of suffering that we saw with Viktor Frankl, it's pretty similar, okay? We find meaning through the work that we do, the deeds that we do, the people that we meet, the experiences that we have, and then the acceptance and attitude that we have with our suffering. So we're looking at the pleasure, right? The pleasure that we're doing things with our work and our deeds. We're formed for God's family. We do that through the experiences that we have with our family, even the people that we meet, created to become like Christ. And that's, in essence, this whole entire idea of A Course in Miracles, because the path of enlightenment had brought me to this, and if I want to find peace, then I have to practice and preach peace, because you learn best what you teach. And then serving and the mission. So the mission has always been to provide this, right, to people that need it, because it's out of my heart, right? I could be selling this, and I could have been doing this for a long time, because a lot of people do that. And oftentimes they do that out of fear, they do that out of survival, right? So to be accepted and control individuals and blah 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 and all that essence. But this is basically my legacy, right? This is not the prettiest thing in terms of aesthetic looks. It's not the greatest videos, but it is my life. This is where I'm at in life. And if it weren't for the experiences that I had, I wouldn't be able to explain the things that I'm trying to demonstrate. Okay? Now, a lot of what I speak are experiences. Okay? Because it always gets down to the point of wanting survival, especially with the experience that I had with Changa, DMT. It just feels like I want to hold on to this body. And it wasn't until I let go of my body that I was able to actually experience what liberation actually was. And if it weren't for that, then I wouldn't know what the other experiences were in terms of Samadhi and Satori. So remember that your happiness and your function and your purpose in life are all the same. And the more that you feel this happiness, the more that you're actually following your bliss.